Are we live? Okay. Hello, guys. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Amal, and I welcome you all to another amazing and exciting global webinar presented to you by AI Data Yard. Today, we'll be talking about people analytics and how it enhances workplace culture and productivity. We have a very special guest with us. Her name is Eesha Tariq. She is currently a people analyst at Motive, which is a software development firm based in the US. Thank you, Isha, for your time. It's lovely
Thank you.
having you here. Isha is also a Fulbright scholar from NYU, and she has a lot of interesting and inspiring details to share. So, over to you, Isha.
Thank you so much, Amal, and hello and assalamu alaikum. I am basically just excited for this opportunity to be able to speak about something that I've been interested in for so long, and finally I have some experience and some understanding to be able to talk about it and have discussions with other people. I obviously have like slides prepared for this webinar, but happy to answer any questions or comments that you have along the way. So feel free to convey your thoughts accordingly. So should I just get started?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so I know Amal has already given you a brief introduction about myself, but just to build up on that, I just want to talk about why I'm here and who I am. Basically, I come from like a business psychology mix background in terms of education. I did my master's from NYU, like she said, so it was focused on organizational psychology, but now and before that even, and now I have work experience in HR, market research, and in between I've just always been learning and applying new tools and techniques. So my LinkedIn can tell you all the boring details. I won't get into all of that, but generally I'm always like, the crux of my interest is always how can we make workplaces better, because employee well-being is something that really matters to me, and I always seek opportunities to enhance my technical skill set. So the intersection of the two has always been very interesting to me. And as a result, I ended up in this field of people analytics, which obviously we'll be talking more about. Because I over here I get to work towards hopefully improving employee experiences using both psychology and also data analytics. And I'm still new here, so that's why I wanted to come on here as well, because I'm also navigating the space in general. I keep learning from my mentors, which are my peers and my bosses and professors that I've had along the way. And now I see that HR in Pakistan is getting more and more interested in this field. So I'm here to support the buildup of this community, and I'll also talk a bit more about how we can do that together at the end of this presentation as well. So just to set us up a bit, let's talk about what is people analytics before we go into like a lot of details. Let's just scratch the surface, right? So definition wise, it's just collecting and analyzing employee and company data in a way that can support HR decision making, make it more accurate, make it more objective. And through that, why does that matter? Why do we want to do that? It's because it improves what we call business outcomes. Business outcomes can be what matter to your company, what is your bottom line, whether that is profitability or something else. Just improving those employee driven business outcomes, because no business outcome can be achieved without your employee, right? And so, as with anything proposed, that is like the ultimate question, like, so what? Why should I care about people analytics or anything else that we talk about? And we'll go into it a bit deeper soon, just in terms of like real world examples, etc. But I also thought that it's important to highlight that regardless of your company type or your company size, it is something you can apply. So you can apply these techniques to get the most from your workforce and also give them the most that you can, and stay tuned to their needs and their wants. So it is not whether you run a corner store or whether you have like a big conglomerate complex company, you can still, you'll always have employees, you'll always have data, whether it's about employees or whether it's about your company in general. So there's no way that you're running a business and you don't have people working for you, right? So that brings us to, you know, again, what is the big so what of people analytics? So I divided it into two main parts. First is, like I said, driving business outcomes. We can definitely do that through people analytics, because people analytics allows us to make better quality hires, finding out how can we retain employees. So not only are we saving resources in terms of money, but also in terms of time, because whoever we bring in, we're training them, we are, you know, spending our trainers or our managers valuable time and money that we're giving them. And so when we start to hire, make quality hiring decisions and we retain our employees, we can definitely save up a lot of costs, and inevitably that drives up our profits. So that is where our bottom line, our business outcome comes in. um, and another way of pushing business outcomes is looking at how productive employees are, figuring out, okay, this is the set of employees that is the most productive. What are their patterns? What techniques are they using? How many breaks are they taking, for example, because you know they need to be relaxed as well in order to be able to work properly. What is driving them? Like, is it their background? Is it you know, their current work environment? What is driving them? And whatever we find, we can apply it to our not so high performers. I won't say low performers, because everyone has the potential to be a high performer, and we apply it to them. And so we bring up their productivity in that way, ultimately, again, you know, benefiting the bottom line. So the reason why we care about driving business outcomes is because HR is commonly considered as a cost center, right? It is not creating the money, quote unquote, not creating any the business any money. And you know, we want to prove to our company leaders, or ourselves, where exactly can HR save us money, or what percentage of boost in productivity can be caused by our people analytics projects or our HR analytics projects, right? So we want to be able to show that, so we can advocate for higher budgets, we can justify more spending on our employees, give more benefits to our employees, which nicely leads us to our next main reason why it's important to have data driven HR decisions, which is to enhance employee well-being. It is a given that, you know, if you're satisfied, if you're happy, you are probably going to do well in your work. But let's say if you're happy everywhere else except your work, then your performance will likely take a dip. You know, so it's not so much about, there's obviously personality, but it is not it what matters is how you're nurturing your employees' personality and how you welcoming them, making them feel better about how they're working, who they're working with. And so in terms of employee experience, if we can pinpoint areas where they are satisfied versus dissatisfied, we know where to put our HR budgets to use. They might be limited, but we don't want to waste any efforts or resources in areas we're already excelling. We want to maintain those areas, and we want to improve areas where we're not doing so well. And we can talk a bit about, you know, like more specific real world examples from what I've experienced, what I've seen, that many businesses are interested in these questions, but only a few are able to really answer them with data, like with data backed like reasons, you know. Um, you can ask these questions from a business and they can always give you their understanding of it, but they might not always be able to give you, you know, specific numbers or percentages, or you know, real conversations that they've had with employees about these things. So for example, for smaller companies, you know, it doesn't have to be big numbers or something that, you know, it's a giant survey or whatever. It can be something more directly observable, like a quick conversation with an employee, or just generally observing, is my employee able to, you know, stay active during this time, perform, engage, how many calls are they doing? Whatever the nature of your business is, it can be applied to you. Um, so, for example, the first question that a lot of people, a lot of companies have is like, what do my high performing employees consider the most important in the workplace? So, for example, we do engagement surveys, and every large company has some sort of an engagement survey going around. So, the data that you get from that survey has the potential to identify where your high performers are placing the most importance. And there's obviously multiple analyses that can help you get to that answer, but the reason we want to know the answer to this question is because these might be areas why they become high performers in the first place, right? So by knowing and understanding these areas, we can bring to the attention of managers and leaders that here are the recommended ways you can improve these areas to ensure like more consistency of high performance and pushing other employees to perform better as well. Um, and we can also, like, every HR company, they have an engagement strategy. They have some sort of like operational or engagement strategy that is geared towards like how do we make sure employees are working well together, because teamwork makes the dream work, obviously. So we need to understand this fact that we definitely would want to focus on areas where we get the most performance. Companies that have highly engaged workforces, they are 21% more profitable and around, I think, 18% more productive than other companies. So these are obviously reported figures and studies from like different countries, but I'm sure it's like applicable generally as well. If a company is fast paced, they might have certain like different questions. So we have a lot of tech companies. Obviously, Motive is one as well. But generally speaking, any fast paced company, they are always concerned with keeping their employees. And those first 30 days, which is, sorry, first 90 days, which is the first 3 months of any employee that joins, are crucial. They're critical. So we don't want people to leave before that period is over, at least, because that is the time in which they are going to settle in. They're going to understand the business. They're going to be allowed to make mistakes and be more comfortable in making mistakes. Let's not say allowed, because mistakes are always possible at any stage, but their comfort level should be such that they are okay with making those mistakes and able to share with their managers without any kind of judgment or fear. So in those 30 days, we can analyze attributes of employees who left the company previously within the first 90 days and compare them with attributes of those who stayed. The knowledge that's acquired from this analysis, just this basic comparison, and I'm not talking about some deep technical analysis, just this comparison is going to play a pivotal role in enhancing how you select candidates and also how you train them. So it's important where those employees are coming from, because maybe you have a certain group of employees that is more prone to leaving their job earlier, or you have those employees come in but they are trained in a certain and using a certain methodology or certain module, and ultimately that figuring out where the problem is arising and where we can target what is in our control, that will lead to a decrease in your employee turnover, which is just your the number of employees leaving your company. And again, this is crucial for our business outcomes in terms of saving costs. And then, third pressing issue that a lot of companies have started doing is bringing their workforce back into the office. And now, obviously, some work is important that has to be done in an environment space. It has to be with in person with people face to face. But I know that a lot of companies that put this mandate out that you have to return to office. I'm not sure how many did like a full analysis of whether even this move was necessary and also whether it was feasible. Because the thing is, a lot of employees moved away from their office locations once the pandemic hit for various reasons. But it's very unreasonable for companies to expect that what was being done from home comfortably, now they'll leave that and move back to their office city, wherever it is. Um, But using data, we can at least identify that, for which employees is it still feasible to move back. Maybe they're in a certain radius. And maybe we can calculate like a minimum relocation cost coverage for those who are maybe a bit further out. So this kind of analysis can really help you inform, um, you know have more empathetic decisions. So we can't just say that everybody come back immediately, like Kal say you just all join back in. You give them a reasonable structured plan, and really emphasize along the way where is your company supporting them. um, we can also compare performances of employees who work from office versus who work from home, and see, is there really a difference? If there's not, then maybe this is just a big discussion to be had or in general all over again. But you need to make a justifiable decision, and that is what people analytics will allow you to do. Um, and when it comes to decision making, obviously, what matters is where your company is at in terms of people analytics in general. Now we're going to be talking about, is your company ready to be making these decisions based on people analytics? How can they be ready? Or depends on, again, what questions you have in general about your employees. But there are different levels from at which your company can be, and there's no right or wrong. This is just for your evaluation, like, okay, I am in XYZ company, I'm in motive, so based on this I can realize that, okay, my people analytics team is at level 3 or moving towards level 4, something like that. Meanwhile, if I don't have any people analytics department. I just have an HR department. And some companies don't even have an HR department. Like the smaller companies, they might not even have that. So this can be a good starting point of, okay, I've never studied my data from this lens. Where can I start? Because obviously this is overwhelming if you have never thought about your data like this. So doesn't always also mean numbers. So you don't need to have like rows and rows of data in order to be doing any of this. Data is also qualitative. So, when we talk to our employees, when we take their interviews, even when we even interacting with them on, WhatsApp or something or the other, just observe behavior around the office or around or in meetings. That is also data for us. And so the first thing to remember is that you should have a record of things. Um, Verbal conversations are obviously good and it's good to observe, but even then, that is why the habit of note taking is so important. So you continuously are in tune with who you're interacting with. So let's talk about the levels now. The first level of people analytics maturity is operational reporting. This is more catering to like data requests that you get from people like your executives or leadership or other departments and teams. It's basically reporting of past data, like nothing that is in the future, but or everything that is right now or was in the past. So, for example, maybe a team wants to see how many people left that team in the past 6 months. That is an example of operational reporting. Or maybe your CEO wants to see, okay, department wise, I want to see how long are people staying, kitni der tak last kar rahe hain log, on average. Are they lasting for 2 years, 3 years? What is the general timeline? Um, and you take that same reporting and you bring it to level 2, it becomes advanced reporting. Now, what is the difference? The difference is how you're doing that reporting. So in the first level, you're just giving what people are asking for. In the second level, you are starting to build solutions for people. You are automating dashboards. You are automating sheets or reports that are being sent out. Um, One example is that now there are AI note takers. So any meetings that you're doing, automatically it's noting down your thoughts, your discussions with a specific candidate or a specific, maybe you're conducting exit interviews. So now you have all of that data. You are starting to become more mature in terms of how you're reporting data. An example is, for like, I set up an automated email that sends out to stakeholders, um, these are your numbers from last week. So numbers can be anything. So for example, a sales manager might get an email that says, hey, this is the number of calls your employees made last week. Um, and this is the comparison to the week before that and the week before that. So they get, a good picture of how they've been doing over a certain period. That is more advanced reporting. And then that is simple reporting. And then you go to the third level is where you start asking questions, where you start hypothesizing. So, for example, you start wondering what are the relationships between two different variables. Like you might have data of employees leaving or not leaving, which is turnover data. And then you have data of, what are their sales performances. So maybe you think, or maybe you want to ask the question like, are employees with low sales performance like more likely to leave the company of their own accord because they're feeling demotivated, like I'm not performing well, so I want to leave the company? Or is it maybe the other way around? The employees performing so well that they're getting opportunities or they're seeing their worth more than what the company currently offers to them. So they leave, you know. So it can be these kinds of questions. You start building, um, more connected analyses at this point. You're not in reporting out individual numbers. Now you're able to tell a story with your data. And level four is just a step further, and it has the element of making predictions. So you're not telling only what has happened or what relationship exists, but you're now saying, okay, if this happens, then that will happen. So if an employee has high sales, high engagement, is compensated well, but the job market is down, but the economy is down. You have all of these different data points. Inflation rate is X%. Um, will they stay or will they leave? That is a prediction your model will be able to make. So that is like the highest level. And that level doesn't really end. It has no limit now with we have AI and we have all of these tools. So there's no, the sky is the limit for this particular level. Um, and this is where larger companies should aspire to be. So smaller companies, level one and level two is decent enough for them. Um, for bigger companies, they have more data, they have the capacity, they have the power to be at level three and level four. So now that we've talked about, how what can people analytics look like in your company, it's obviously very, very important to also talk about some ethical considerations in people analytics. We are working oftentimes with very confidential data. 110% of the times it is confidential data. And even if it is not, you assume that it is. Without, it should be a given, but obviously we have to reiterate these things. We should definitely have very strong policies in handling such sensitive information. There should be security measures to prevent breaches. If you are a small company, then make sure that only one or two people have that kind of information. um, and the second is to make sure that any kind of sensitive information, which is demographic information, or if they've given feedback or any kind of thing, that should be anonymized to as much of an extent as possible. So for example, we do engagement surveys, and we give the summary of the results to managers. So for example, if I'm managing like 5 people, I get a report that your team has like on average of this score or this percentage across the area of like team culture and collaboration. So this is an area where you can improve. So that is how those results might be communicated. But for teams that are very small, like just 2 people, 3 people, we don't really give like that level of detail to their managers, because then it's easy to identify that, oh, okay, well, I got a low score in so and so. My team gave a low score in, let's say, manager support. So there, it's probably that person. Like it leads to assumptions. So even avoiding any kind of assumptions or any kind of attribution to a data point to any employee is very important. Just completely avoid that and make sure whatever insights you convey are not pinpointing to an individual or 2 or 3 individuals, even rather. Um, so it defeats, because it just defeats the purpose of, when you talk to your employees and you want to them to be honest, or you want them to be very, comfortable in expressing what they feel. um, if they don't believe you that their results are confidential, you'll never know what they're really thinking, obviously. Even with that, there's a lot of bias in surveys, so you definitely have to be very cognizant of making sure to do your best at least. Legal teams, in bigger companies, legal teams often work very closely with people analytics teams to develop like some sort of official guidelines to make sure none of this happens. um, and then another thing in using algorithms and data analytics, and this is more for like level 3 and level 4 kind of analyses, but it's also good to know otherwise. But any kind of like percentages that you're reporting, there's always going to be some kind of bias in your algorithms, because your data is human related data, and anything that's human related comes with a bias. Any historical data comes with a bias. If you use AI is very, very, very biased. I'm sure we've all seen examples of people asking AI certain questions and it giving like a very, um, I don't know, for lack of a better word, sometimes racist answers, sometimes sexist answers. Like you will come across these examples on the internet. So always make sure that whatever you are putting out there to your stakeholders, you are vetting it properly. You are taking the time to sit with your team and show them that, this is what I've come up with based on so and so data. Make sure your people analytics team is diverse. So a lot of analytics teams end up having a male majority. There should definitely be a balance. In Pakistan specifically, I know because we don't have a lot of racial diversity here, but still in terms of at least gender and sex, we should have this kind of diversity on our teams, and obviously otherwise as well. That should be our goal. Obviously, it's not always possible, but diverse teams means that less bias decision making. And always remember to take any kind of insight with a pinch of salt, because again, like I said, these are employees that we're talking about. They're not merely numbers, they're real people. So always act with empathy and kindness, and that should be the forefront of all of your decision making. To be very honest, data driven is there up there, but you need to first act with empathy and kindness. And then lastly, just be transparent. So you might have experienced this in college or otherwise, where people twist a lot of data points to suit their model results, give like a stronger model, give a more shocking percentage, or something that stands out more. Don't do that. Models and numbers will not always be astounding or surprising. They'll not always make sense. It's better, definitely, to be confused yourself rather than to misguide someone else into making a wrong decision. Sometimes the data will tell you absolutely nothing, but even in that nothing, it has value because there isn't always a relationship between two things. Um, so you definitely need to work together with your team and your stakeholders to tell the right story. Always prioritize giving the right data points first. So if you see a percentage and you're like, this doesn't make sense or this doesn't add up, always run it by your team and be like, hey, this is how I did the analysis. What do you think? Like, is this reasonable or not? Just prioritize giving the right data first. And sometimes even your team doesn't know. So you take it to your stakeholder and you say, I got this result. What do you think about this? Why might this be? And this is something I am learning every single day. I am not the best at it yet, but this is definitely, it's opened my experience at Motive has opened my eyes to a lot of this. Um, and this is where I talk a bit more about on a personal level. Like I know we talked at a company level how you're doing things, but in terms of personally as well, if you're trying to go down, if you're not in a company right now or you're in a completely different field and you want to go down this route, the first thing you'll see, like these 4 steps listed even on this slide are kind of reflective of the 4 levels we talked about earlier as well. Because the first thing to do is to just be aware of like what HR data is, like what kind of data exists. If you are in a company, then maybe try figuring out what HR data your company has. And HR data can be like any employee related information, whether that is their demographics, or whether it is engagement surveys, or whether it is their sales performance, or interviews, or any kind of test that they gave. So you need to understand what you have, and then develop an understanding of what HR metrics exist. Like, is there retention rates? Sorry, just a second. So sorry, that was just my phone ringing. Um, so yeah, so you definitely need to be in tune with basic HR metrics that exist. You basically start scratching the surface through only your understanding. Um, like, that is good enough to get you started. Are you reporting any kind of engagement scores, or do you have averages of their performance ratings, things like that? That brings us to the second step. Like, okay, now I have this data, I know what metrics exist. um, how do I calculate those metrics? How do I start conveying that basic reporting to someone? That's where your data literacy is important. Now, it depends on where you want to go to. People analytics has a lot of branches as well. So you might just want to work on more like consulting, people facing kind of role. That would mean you don't need to go into very advanced tools. Or you might want to go into the back end of things, like building out data, people related databases and all of that. So you can start with you can start with data tools like Excel or Google Sheets. I think everybody almost knows how to use those kind of tools. And if you're aiming to join larger organizations, you can go for learning SQL for extracting the data. But again, these are things that are very easily learnable on the job as well. But knowing the basics, knowing just the language, is a really good place to start, and also sets you up for success in like those roles. A lot of companies will hire you even if you don't know SQL, but just telling them that I'm familiar with the syntax. I know like where to start, just looking at the data. Even that gets you a foot in the door. My advice to anybody who is trying to learn visualizations is to pick a tool, like whether it's R or Python or Power BI or Tableau. Pick a tool and focus on that tool first. And a good starting point, like if you have absolutely no idea where to start from, or how to start, turn to this website. It's called w3schools.com. It will give you a good starting point. It will give you an understanding of like the language, at least. Like, even in Excel or even in Google Sheets, there is a language that we speak, right? And I'm not talking about like a complex language. I'm just saying how to enter a formula in a cell. So if you're doing is equal to something, that is a language that you had to learn at some point to know what the tool does. So just learning that is a great place to start. And then from there, take any data set on the internet. Doesn't have to be employee related or anything. Just any data set that you find, and start applying that language to that data set, because you only learn by doing. That is the only way I've learned to do things, and I think it is a very, very important like step in mastering anything. Um, and so the third thing that really, really sets you apart is storytelling with your data. Now, if I go to your team and I tell the manager, like, your turnover rate is 6%, it means nothing to them because there's no context, there's no information. It's just, okay, they have this fact. Now what? Again, the question always comes back to like the big so what of things. So, but if I tell them like, your turnover rate last 6 months was 6%, meaning 6% of your employees left the team, but for other teams that do similar work, it's 1%. So only 1% of the employees left. That tells them there's a problem. And then you provide them with a list of, okay, well, here are the key differences in your team, in the work that they're doing or what you're providing them, etc., that is different from other teams, that can potentially be causing this difference. Now, I know we're not giving them an exact, like, this is what's wrong, but even that idea of like, this is possibly what's wrong, if you provide this to them, they will listen. they will understand and they will want to know more. Then they'll ask you, okay, you're saying possibly this is it's causing this. Can you confirm? Can you check for sure? And that's how you get the ball rolling, and that's how you include your stakeholders in your decision making, and how you build up the importance of your function, of the HR function in general. Um, Companies want to know what they can do. That's what actionable means. Like, they want actionable strategies. They want to know what can they do to stop wasting their money or their time, rather than just hear numbers or just hear problems, right? And that's just where the reason why we talk about storytelling before we talk about advanced analytics is because going into advanced analytics and machine learning, to make predictions, or using AI to maybe generate, quick insights. The reason we emphasize the storytelling part first is because unless you know how to convey basic results, your advanced analytics will not make sense to anybody, including yourself. Like, I've had times where I've done analyses and they have not made much sense to me. I'm like, okay, well, I don't really know what this means. I have to go back to the drawing board, go back to understanding what the problem is, and just obviously work with my stakeholders to ultimately figure out, hey, this is what they need in an advanced way. And so that's why advanced analytics and all of machine learning and all of those steps come at the very end. um, and so just to kind of talk a bit about my own personal journey to this point and how I envision the field of people analytics in Pakistan. I came back to Pakistan last year after a 2 years master in organizational psychology. And my focus was in people analytics. But before making this move, I just wanted to check, is there even anything out there for people analytics waiting for me back home? Um, so I quickly found that the job pool was very small. And so I had to act quickly. I looked for jobs and I only found one or two roles, one of them being this role at Motive. And again, I'll tell you, this role was not the one I ended up in. I was initially, it was like a more senior role, and I did not qualify for it. So I definitely thought that, okay, this is a great point to still make a connection, still learn from the people who have been in this role, been in this team. Because it's a US based company, it benefited from that understanding of like, okay, so this is already an existing area in the US, so they can bring this knowledge into Pakistan and apply it to Pakistani workforces or workplaces. um, I also couldn't find a lot of people in Pakistan who could guide me about this field other than the ones I found at Motive. I didn't really know where to look, honestly. But alhamdulillah, I was lucky enough to land the role after having conversations in and just discussions about what I'm looking for, and it aligned very well with what Motive was looking for. So luckily, they created space for me, and I was able to join in. And as I joined, I received mentorship from my boss as well, Yuyan. She has really been a great support in all of this. She also pushed me towards, initiating some more formalized people analytics community in Pakistan. And that's why I set up a LinkedIn group in collaboration with the Society for People Analytics. It's essentially an organization committed to like forming spaces where people who are interested in this field can come and connect. So I just using their support, I kind of built off this LinkedIn group, and right now it's obviously very starting early stages. And I'm hoping that it turns into a place where we can all come and collaborate and learn together from what is my people analytics team doing, what is your team doing. And I would say, even though on the group you don't see much, but on the back end, I'm having these interesting discussions with so many people, and one of them is has led to this webinar, obviously. So I am very glad that I made this initiative in the first place, and I'm looking for people who want to be part of the movement. So maybe whoever is interested, we can come and create a meetup session, a virtual meetup session for people who are interested in this kind of work. And another place in you can obviously contribute to people analytics is our very own team at Motive. We're definitely looking right now for people to join our team, specifically those who have data science skill sets already and they want to apply it to HR. So any kind of modeling or analytics work you might have done and you want to apply it to HR or making employee lives better, definitely reach out to me and keep an eye out for more information. Like, I don't think right now we've posted the job, but still, this is something in the works, and I would love to connect with anybody who's interested in that area. And just to wrap up, you can use either of these links to connect with me. You can connect on the group, join the group from the Pakistan People Analytics Meetup group, and you can connect with me on LinkedIn. And I'm excited to, talk more with you.
Okay, thank you so much, Isha. It was lovely having you here, and it was
Thank
all
you.
very insightful, especially for someone like me who's looking to get started into this field. And yeah, I'd love to stay connected and tell
Yeah,
more people about you as well. Lastly, I would like to ask a question
yeah,
before
go ahead.
we end it. So I was just wondering that these days we keep hearing that AI is going to take over the world and it's going to take over people's jobs, and there's going to be no people in offices, just going to be robots and all of that superficial stuff. But there are people who are believing in that as well, and
Yeah,
sometimes we are bound to succumb to that reality. So
yeah.
what do you think, if that happens in the future, do you think this field is going to still be useful, or is this skill or people working in this field still be employed? So yeah, I'd love to know your insights on that.
That's a very good question. So that's where the storytelling point I was emphasizing on came up. So AI can do a lot of things for you for sure, but it has a good margin for of error when it comes to making decisions, especially human related decisions. You can give AI, like, for example, you can give AI resumes and interview, like ask it to do interviews and everything, and it will make a decision for you. But it will ignore a lot of human elements in there. A lot of it is seeing potential in other people, seeing the capacity for growth in other people. AI is not able to really do that. Reading between the lines, all of that is very, very important. And these are things only humans can do. When it comes to reporting, I'm afraid, yes, level one, level two reporting, AI will be probably able to do a much quicker job. Even there, I will say that I have reservations because personally, I have tried doing it. And we've always had a good laugh about, okay, sometimes AI is just saying things and making up numbers as well. So definitely, if you're doing that right now, there is still room for improvement for AI as well. So AI is not perfect. It can, like, that's the thing. It will do your job, but I don't know if it will do your job right. But definitely, storytelling is where we as humans thrive and where we as humans should put our focus on. And this is something that is so new to me as well, because I've always been in my comfort zone of reporting and um, just, okay, someone has asked me for a dashboard, I build them a dashboard. They ask me for a graph or a chart, I give them that chart. But having to sit down and have those conversations with people who do not speak your language, who do not speak your analytics language, and also your other language, because I work with people in the US, so I always have to speak in English and it has to be perfect and understandable. Otherwise, there's a gap, right? So AI is able to solve your problem to some extent, but you definitely will have an edge as long as you hold on to your storytelling abilities, you keep developing that skill, you keep offering more than what AI can give them. So I think, to your answer your question, there is a threat to very basic level operations, but it can never replace a human, is in this field at least.
So we've got nothing to worry about, right?
So far. Yes.
Thank you so much for answering that. I hope people found it interesting, and I'm sure they must have. And I would still love to, stay connected with you in the future.
For sure.
Thank you so much, Isha. We'll be
Thank
ending
you.
this here.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
so much.
everybody, for joining in and watching us. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Lafis. Bye.
Allah Hafiz.